Hello, fellow diamond painting addicts, and welcome back to Diamond Painting Anonymous. I'm Daphne, and I'm here today for kind of an unusual video. I know it looks like a whip and chat, and I guess sort of that's what it is. Not really, because you're going to be looking at me working, but not the whole time. Because what I want to talk about today is diamond painting supplies that I regret buying. So I'm going to zoom in to where I'm going to be working because you will be seeing that some of the time. I just thought I would take this time to film and get some work done and share with you some of my thoughts about things that I've done along my diamond painting journey that maybe I wish I hadn't. Let me get zoomed in and I will be right back. Don't go anywhere. Okay, this is going to be a little bit of a whip and chat in that I'm going to be working while I'm talking to you guys, but I will be throwing some things up on the screen. Some I will be showing to you, but I just was thinking the other day that I really wish I had done a little bit more research as I was going along. Maybe it wouldn't have stopped me from buying any of these things and wasting the money on them, but maybe it would have. I don't know. Maybe we just all need to try things out for ourselves and see what we like and what we don't. I've tried many things along my diamond painting journey. Some absolutely loved, have stuck with me for the rest of the journey, like my glue dots. Something I wish I had discovered much earlier in my diamond painting life. I think it would have made things a lot easier, but it is what it is. So I'm just going to talk about some things that I spent money on and kind of wish I hadn't, because they ended up just not being for me. Maybe I shouldn't regret that because I did learn that they weren't for me, but I wish it was something I could have figured out before I spent a bunch of money on it. Most of the things I no longer have just because they didn't work for me. So I have since gotten rid of them, whether I put them in a mystery box or I just donated them or sometimes just threw them away. The first thing I want to talk about is storage, because I think that is one of the biggest ones. Once you start diamond painting, you need to find something to sort all your diamonds into. Some people work from the baggies, and if that's how you work, then great. That just doesn't work for me. I can do it. I just don't enjoy it. I much prefer being able to work from my Elizabeth Ward or my bottle cases or whatever. But I have tried other things. So one of the first things I tried, I think, was what all of us kind of get into very first, was those little 28 slot storage containers where it's, 7 rows of 4. My very first diamond painting that I did was some special drill partial mandalas. And for sorting out the partial drills and doing what I was doing with those very small 30 by 30 kits, the 28 storage was fine. But even at that, I don't like the way they were all hooked together. It made it difficult to empty them out. They seemed kind of flimsy, and I would go to pour out one drill and another lid would flip open and would pour out drills that I didn't want, and just very frustrating. And for me, for someone who does really big canvases a lot, they just don't hold enough. There's too many colors, too many drills. They just never were big enough. If you're someone who works on small kits a lot, then they're probably fine, but they just didn't work for me. The other storage that I got that I didn't like, I bought the Star Roar storage, and I'll throw a picture of it up on the screen. I bought it because I liked the fact that it was modular. You could take it apart and have 1, 2, 3, however many in a row that you needed. And I thought it would work, but it just turned out to be very finicky. The pieces weren't as big as I wanted. They didn't hold as many drills as I wanted, and it actually turned out to be very difficult to separate them and put them back together easily. They just, they were difficult. And so I ended up giving them away because I just never used them because they were a pain. The next kind of storage I bought that I regret buying, and I should have realized before I purchased it that I wouldn't like it, and that is the craft meat storage, and I'll stick another picture up there. I know plenty of people who use Craftmates and love it, and if it's a system that works for you, then great. I didn't like it for the same reason that I didn't really like the 28 slot storage, and that's because they were all hooked together. You press on, there's what, 7 or 8 sleeves of containers. So you pull out a sleeve, fill up all the little individual containers with your numbers, but to open them, you had to press on the side and then flip open the one that you wanted. And I don't know if I just got one that was super stiff, or I'm just uncoordinated, or I don't know. But I did not like having to open them that way. It just got really fiddly, and after a couple of pretty major spills, I just decided this was not an option that was going to work for me. And I think I ended up giving that away as a prize or something. I don't even remember what I did with it, or maybe it was in one of my mystery boxes as well. I don't know. I have lots of storage that I got rid of that way. Lots of other things as well that I'll be talking about, but storage. The last one that I'll talk about for storage is one that I bought because everyone was, oh, this is so great. It's cheap. You got to buy it. Plus, I'm in the US and not everybody could get their hands on it. And I thought, well, if it's cheap and it's so good, I'm going to go out and get it. And that's the Harbor Freight storage. Absolutely did not like it. I understand why people do like it. The containers held a lot of drills. You could organize a lot of them inside the container that they came in. But for me, again, maybe it's just because I'm too clumsy, I don't know, but I was continually getting drills stuck in the lid. The lids were not secure. They would open up and stuff would spill everywhere. And just not a container system that I enjoyed. I had, I think at one point, 3 or 4 of them because I do live in the US and they were easy to get. They are inexpensive. I think I paid $6 or $7 for them is all. So they weren't expensive at all compared to some of the other storage that I've purchased. But just didn't work for me. Again, I guess maybe that's part of the journey, is figuring out what works for you and what doesn't. But I think I regret it because it was another one of those kind of FOMO deals where everyone was talking about it, so I had to get it and see what it was like. And I think I knew in the back of my mind going into it that it probably wasn't going to be something that worked for me, but I went ahead and got it anyway. I think it's the search for that perfect tool. And maybe that never ends. Maybe I'm always going to have a list of things that I'm like, I wish I hadn't spent money on that. But those were some pretty big ones for me. So that was storage. Then other things that I regret spending money on, and that is some of the tools. For instance, the rulers for me were just something I regret buying because I don't ever use them. I got them thinking, oh, this is going to be something that will help me keep my drills perfectly straight. This will make everything so much easier, so much faster. And it was not that way at all. It actually ended up taking more time to do everything and was more frustrating than anything. First of all, when I started using the rulers, I didn't know that there was more than one size for the round rulers. You can get them in round and square. I don't have any square rulers anymore. I have given those away in my mystery boxes. I have a couple of round ones left, as you can see, but I didn't realize at the time that they were different sizes. I just couldn't figure out why they fit on some canvases and not on others. Because when you start diamond painting, everyone tells you round drills are 2.8 millimeters and square drills are 2.5. So if all the round drills are the same size, why do you have different size rulers? Well, because they're really not. And those little tiny differences make a big difference once you put them on the entirety of a canvas. So they were not the right size all the time. They were very finicky to work with. And while they work, I'm not going to say they don't work. It's just another one of those tools that I bought to make my life easier, and it ended up not working, so it was just disappointing. Maybe that's what I should say instead of things I regret buying. Tools that turned out to be disappointing because they just didn't work how I thought they were going to. Or they ended up just not being for me because they don't complement how I work. Everybody works differently, and so everybody is not going to like or appreciate the same tools, and that's okay. But maybe you can learn from some of my mistakes and not spend the money that I did figuring out that something doesn't work for you. Because there are a couple of pretty big mistakes. I mean, overall, buying some storage is not that big a deal. Buying some rulers is not that big a deal. But after you buy so many tools and you don't find one that works for you, it does get to be frustrating. So lots of different storage, the rulers. What other tools? Well, one of the biggest tools that I kind of regret buying, and I don't have it anymore because I got rid of it, is my multi-placer wheel. And I bought the multi-placer wheel pretty early on in my diamond painting journey, but I definitely wish that, I mean, I guess, again, maybe the regret is just that it didn't work out, not that I bought it. Maybe that's what I'll say, just diamond painting supplies I regret, or diamond painting supplies that didn't work for me. So the multi-placer wheel, if you haven't seen it, again, I'll throw a picture up there because I don't have mine anymore. But essentially, it's meant for you to be able to pick up, and it's a multi-placer that you pick up mini drills with. But instead of them being on a tip all on a line, they're on a wheel that you can then roll. And it has a little handle that attaches to it so that you can keep your fingers away from it. Well, there is tape that you put alongside the outside of the wheel so that it will pick up the drills. The tape that came with the wheel was slightly larger than the wheel itself, so you get this overhang. And since I elected to use my hands with it rather than the little handle, because I couldn't get a handle, no pun intended, on how to use it with the handle, so I would just use it in my fingers and roll it, which gave me more control, but meant that I ended up with tape all over my hands. So it was super sticky and gummy by the time I got done with it, because the heat from your hands makes the tape gummy. And while it worked, it did let me multi-place, and it did keep things fairly straight, probably just as straight as I would have gotten with a traditional multi-placer. I just got really frustrated with the gumminess of it and having it all over my hands. And maybe that's my fault because I just never figured out how to master using the handle of it, because then my hands wouldn't have been near the tape. But yeah, just something that I was like, yeah, this is never going to work for me. So one of the other things that everyone uses, and I have bought a ton of, is diamond painting trays. And I've tried a ton of different ones. When I very first started diamond painting, I had just a plastic one with no spout that came in some kit that I had purchased. I don't know if it came with the mandalas I did or if it came with a later kit. I don't remember, but I still have it and I still use it occasionally. It fits my hand perfectly, and I never get my drills to line up as well as I do in that particular tray. I don't use it much anymore because it doesn't have a spout, but I do still have it, and I've hung on to it for that very reason. But I've also purchased a ton of other trays. And while, again, maybe regret is the wrong word, I do feel like I wasted more money than I probably should have before I realized that I just wasn't ever going to find the perfect tray. I found one that I liked enough that it's kind of become my constant, and that there's really two, but this is the one I go to the most often, are my cat-proof diamond painting trays, because I like how tall the walls are. I like having my built-in spout, and they just work really well for me. But I have purchased other ones. Again, ones that, you know, some new innovation comes out and I think, oh, I've got to try that. I think I've gotten better about figuring out what works for me and what doesn't. The latest trend that I've seen was the one where people were putting washi tape at the end of their trays, so that basically you had an empty space where all of your drills could gather. It's never bothered me to have that be at the end of my tray where it's covering up some of the grid lines. I guess I can see how that's irritating to other people. It just was never a big concern to me. I got a tray like that and tried it, and actually didn't like it because it made it feel like it was taking up space. All that empty space was then space that I couldn't use, which I'm already not using because that's where my drills, I already shake my extra drills, but I don't know, just didn't like the feel of it. I have purchased, however, many other trays, including one of those gridded trays. When the gridded trays came out, I actually had seen them on Etsy long before I saw anybody else using them, and I had kind of bookmarked it and put it aside as a I should try one of these, it looks interesting kind of thing. I didn't end up buying the one that I had bookmarked. That company actually closed, the store on Etsy closed before I could purchase them, so I ended up buying them from somewhere else. While I know they're still around and I know people like them, I don't know, I found them more irritating than anything. And not irritating because they were poorly made or anything like that. Just the one that I had that was all single grid. I guess it wasn't all single grid, it was half and half lines, half singles. I just found it more annoying because the drills wouldn't line up quite right. It was good in that it would let you pick out bad drills pretty quickly because they either didn't fit in or you could tell they were too small, things like that. But it just didn't help me be any faster or better at what I was doing, which is what I was hoping for, I guess. I have also purchased some pretty expensive trays that came with lots of options. So I have one that not only could you do the singles, but it had different multiples of multi-placing. So if you wanted to do 2, 3, 4, whatever. But I think I found it a little constraining in that the way I use my multi-placer, and maybe this isn't the way that everybody does it, but like this one I think is an 8. And I place anywhere from 2 to 8 with it. So if I just want to pick up like 3 drills, I can do that with this multi-placer and then place them where I want, and it's no big deal. And I'm not constantly switching. And maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just how I prefer to work. I do find myself kind of finding a tool that I like and then sticking with it. Now, how do you know if it's a tool that you're going to like if you don't try it? Obviously you can't, but I wish I had realized sooner that I do have tools that I kind of go back to time after time after time, including these trays that I seem to go back to, my Elizabeth Ward storage that I go back to all the time, and I wish I had just realized, okay, this is what I like and what I'm comfortable with. I should just do it this way. And maybe there's an element too for me of trying to find something that I could show on the channel, hey, this is the new thing, to get people watching and stuff like that. So in that respect, maybe I shouldn't regret it. But as I packed up mystery boxes and as I've packed up getting ready for us to move and things like that, I've gotten rid of so much stuff that it's like, wow, did I really need to spend all the money on all of these things? Because maybe I didn't. I never use cover minders. I have a collection of them, but I don't use them for their intended purpose because, as you can see here, I very rarely actually use the plastic cover. I love my release papers. I love being able to make release papers. I much prefer working that way. It makes the sections easier for me. It keeps my brain kind of contained to the area that I'm working on, which I need. And while they're cute and adorable, I just don't use them. Like I said, I have a collection of them on my filing cabinet right now, but I am slowly getting rid of them as well because I just don't use them. The other tool that I wanted to talk about, and this makes me an outlier, I think, but one thing I wish I hadn't gotten because I never use it and it spends 99.9999% of its time behind the door in storage, is a light pad. And I know a lot of people swear by them. I much prefer to have overhead lighting that is very good and do it that way. Part of why I don't like a light pad is because I feel like it actually strains my eyes more than it helps, because for me, it kind of gives everything like a film negative effect, and it washes out the colors. And for me, that's part of what I enjoy, is looking at the colors of the drills and of the canvas itself as I'm placing things. And so having it all kind of washed out like that, I don't enjoy. It actually makes the symbols for me most of the time harder to see because of that kind of film negative effect. And I don't like the way it accentuates all of the gapping between drills. It's not as bad with round drills because there's naturally gaps between them anyway, but on a square kit like this, where I'm placing the drills together to put a light pad underneath it and have it just accentuate for me where my drills aren't perfectly straight and there's gaps, I would spend all day going back in and fixing everything. And I finally just decided, even though I know tons of people love light pads and swear by them, that it just doesn't work for me. And since I'm the one doing the work, I need to be the one that's comfortable. And maybe that sounds weird, like I said, to some people, because I know there are so many of diamond painters who absolutely wouldn't even think of diamond painting without a light pad, but I don't need it. I prefer to do without it. I'd rather just have, like I said, a good overhead light, some good natural light, and diamond paint that way. So maybe that makes me a tad oddball in the community, but I just, yeah, light pads have never been my thing. I also tried at one point a magnifying light, a standing magnifying light. While I used it for a while, it never worked out for me the way that I wanted it to. I bought it so that it could be a light, yes, but also so, because my eyes are not great, especially close up these days, that I could use it to magnify. I think I bought it actually when I was working on my first Josephine wall, and I thought it would help with that. It actually didn't. Now, I don't know if this is me or the way I had it set up. I don't know. But I never could get it set up to where I could actually use the magnifying part of it and see the canvas and be comfortable placing the drills. Like by the time I got it to where I could see, I was so far away that I couldn't, my hands didn't feel like I was coordinated enough to be placing things. Or maybe it was just trying to translate to where to place things for my brain, from my hand through my eyes, through the magnifier to my brain, just didn't work somehow. So I never actually ended up using the magnifying part of it. I used it as a light for a long time, but I'm much happier just using my overhead lights or my desk lamp and being able to control it that way than having the magnifying light. And it wasn't hugely expensive, and like I said, I did use it as a light, but I never did use it for the magnifying part, which was what I had purchased it for. So yeah, another one of those supplies that felt like just kind of a waste of money for me. The last one that I'm going to talk about, and I don't have it anymore, we actually sold it, and that is a drafting table. And again, it's one of those things, I can appreciate the idea behind it. It just didn't work for me. Also, I should have paid more attention to the kind of table that I was buying, and I didn't, so that's on me. But when I bought my drafting table, everyone was getting them, and oh, this is going to save my neck, my back, whatever. I wasn't really having any neck or back problems, but I thought, well, if this is working for everyone, then I can avoid having those issues, and that's a win-win, right? So I got this drafting table off of Amazon, and I absolutely hated it for several reasons. One, I didn't like the tilt. I mean, that's just the honest truth. I much prefer working on a flat surface. I feel like I have a better handle on things. When everything was tilted, it just felt like everything was going to slide off at any moment. I mean, I had one of the little tacky pads to kind of help hold my drills tray in place, but then everything's still at an angle, and it just felt super awkward to me. Not not a way that I enjoyed working. Also, like I said, I just kind of went to Amazon and got a drafting table. Well, I didn't pay close enough attention, and what I got was a drafting table where the entire top tilted, which was fine. That's the purpose of a drafting table, but for me, I probably would have been much better off to buy one that had like a little area off to the side so the entire top didn't tilt, but there was a little flat piece next to it, because when the entire top tilts, there's nowhere to put any of your other supplies. So anything that I wanted to keep near me while I was working, like my case of drills or extra pins or a trash tray or my timer or a drink or anything like that, I had to have a secondary table next to me anyway to hold all that kind of stuff. So it ended up taking up more room than I wanted it to, because I ended up having to still have 2 tables. So that part of it was frustrating. The other part that I didn't like was, because it tilted, it had an edge at the bottom, so that if you were using it for drafting or art or whatever else people use it for, it would hold your paper or your diamond painting in place and keep it from just sliding off the edge of the table, which I thought would be a good thing, because then I wouldn't have to like clamp my diamond painting to the table to keep it where it was and all that kind of stuff. Well, it was a very hard metal edge and it stuck up several inches. And what ended up happening was it was right in the way where I would rest my arms. So after just a few hours of the hard metal edge digging into my arms, I said to my husband, okay, I have to fix this somehow because this is making me crazy. And of course you can't like flip the table around. It's only made to tilt one way, and the edge served a purpose. So it was built in, I couldn't take it off. So we ended up getting like some pipe wrapping and some foam roller things, kind of like a pool noodle, but much smaller, and kind of wrapping it around. So at least when I was resting my arms on it, they were cushioned. But it was that just made it even more, the angle of everything even more uncomfortable. And shortly after I got it, it was just one annoyance after another. And so we eventually got rid of it. It actually just went down to live downstairs, and my husband just used it as a regular table for a long time. Back when we still had our 3D printers, he had the 3D printer sitting on it. So it didn't even really get used as a drafting table. And then after all the trouble with my knee started and I got my adjustable table, which I enjoy much more, we just didn't need it. And it ended up being one of the things that we sold, because there was no need to schlep it all the way to Canada with us, because I knew nobody was going to use it. So that's it, guys. Kind of a short video, but I just wanted to talk about the supplies that I've had that I wish maybe I wouldn't have spent money on. Maybe regret isn't the right word. I don't know what is. I did learn something from everything that I've purchased. I learned what I didn't like. So I guess in those ways it was helpful, but it is frustrating to buy a bunch of this stuff and then end up stuck with it, and it just hangs around because it's something you don't actually use on a regular basis. I'm curious, is there anything that you guys have purchased that at the end of it you thought, oh, I really wish I hadn't spent the money on this? Is there a particular kind of storage you just can't stand? Is there a particular kind of tray you don't like or love? You can share those as well. Are you a big cover minder user? Have you used rulers? Yeah, just inquiring minds. I guess I just wanted to share with you my hindsight. Hindsight is 20/20, as they say. So in retrospect, how could I know something isn't going to work for me until after I've purchased it and I've tried to use it? Just curious if there are things as you go through your diamond painting journey that you've learned weren't for you, or things that you found that you absolutely love. Either way, leave me a comment down below. That's it for me today, guys. Thanks so much for sticking around till the end of the video. Before you leave, don't forget to do all the things. If you like this rambling video, give it a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and hit that bell notification icon so that you can be informed of future uploads. And as always, guys, thanks so much for watching.